What's going on, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 2 did not disappoint. There is a lot to break down in this video, and many things are very important, not only for this show moving forward, but for the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward as well. So I suggest you watch the entire video because a lot of important things actually happen towards the end, and I'll get to it in my shot-by-shot breakdown. But like usual, I will start with a theory of what I actually think is really happening here. But of course, before we start, if you love Marvel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. Well, as expected, as I mentioned in my last video, the Flag Smashers are indeed super soldiers. They have stolen from a huge organization called the GRC and are now in trouble with somebody called the Power Broker. Now, the Power Broker in the comics is actually a company that will give people the super soldier serum if they pay for it. So the Power Broker could be how all of these members of the Flag Smashers are super soldiers. But the Power Broker also said, "You stole from me," and as we know, the Flag Smashers stole from the GRC, so the Power Broker must be in charge of the GRC as well. And the leader of the Flag Smashers, Carly, said that people who were in charge and in power before the blip were put back into power after the blip by these big organizations. Now, a person that was in power that comes to my mind is Thunderbolt Ross. We've seen Thunderbolt Ross for a very long time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Ever since the Incredible Hulk, he has been working on super soldier serums. In fact, he is even responsible for the Weapon Plus program. This has been an infatuation of his since the Incredible Hulk, and as you know, he's been very involved in the MCU ever since. He is responsible for the Sokovia Accords. He wanted to control the Avengers, which eventually led to them tearing apart. He then even tried to arrest half of the Avengers. So clearly he was a person in power, and clearly he has been working with the super soldier serum, and clearly he is a crooked guy. So my theory is that he is actually in charge of the GRC, and he is the Power Broker as well. Since he is trying to perfect his super soldier serum, he could have used the Flag Smashers as experiments. The serum ended up working on them, and they used that to actually steal from him. They could have actually been working for him, but then went rogue. We know that Thunderbolt Ross is going to be in the Black Widow movie, which was supposed to release before the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and as far as the MCU timeline is concerned, it takes place before the events of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It actually takes place before the events of Avengers Infinity War. And it's highly believed that Black Widow is going to explore super soldier serum as well. We believe that those red vials in the Black Widow trailer is the serum, and it's being given to the girls in the Red Room. And that's why Thunderbolt Ross is in Black Widow. So my theory is that Thunderbolt Ross is behind all of this and will eventually be revealed in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, perhaps at the very end. I also believe that eventually the new Captain America John Walker will be given a version of a super soldier serum. He's already shown signs of not being so good, despite his record of being an actual hero, but Thunderbolt Ross loves to control those superheroes, so perhaps he'll end up giving him some serum as well, sending him over the edge. And let's talk about that right now in my shot-by-shot breakdown. The first scene starts with the new Captain America that was announced in the ending of the last episode, and in the beginning we're led to believe that John is actually a really good guy, a stand-up guy, and a good soldier. It begins with him pulling the zipper down on the coat bag that contains his new Captain America uniform, and we find out that he's actually at his old high school, Custer's Grove High School. Custer's Grove is U.S. Agent John Walker's hometown, and he is about to attend a parade and celebration for him and be on the Good Morning America show, and he's reminiscing in the locker room of the times when he used to play football. He even finds that his name is still on his old locker, removing the current owner of the locker's name to see his JW10. Of course, JW is John Walker, and his number must have been 10. His wife comes in and talks about how she'd sneak in to see him before the game, so it's clear that they're high school sweethearts who stuck together, which actually says a lot about him as a person. Seems like he's loyal, he served his country, and he was apparently the #1 pick to be the new Captain America, and it makes you wonder why he's such a jerk later on in the episode. But we talked about that a little bit in the beginning of this video. His wife leaves, and then comes in Lamar Hoskins, who in the comics takes on the mantle of Bucky and then Battlestar, which is revealed to be his name, his superhero name that is, later on in this episode. John Walker and Lamar Hoskins were friends, and before John Walker was Captain America in the comics, he was Super Patriot. John Walker wanted to be Captain America, so his friend Lamar Hoskins and 2 other men formed a group called the Buckies, and they staged attacks that Super Patriot could fort off to make him look good. When John Walker finally became Captain America in the comics, he wanted Hoskins with him, and so he became the next Bucky. However, Hoskins was later told that the term Bucky was demeaning to African Americans, and he was convinced to change his name to Battlestar. Lamar reveals that just 2 weeks before becoming the new Captain America and Battlestar, they were doing special ops missions. So it really does seem like they're good guys. They talk about doing the job, doing a good job, but he does mention that John can't just punch his way out of problems anymore. This implies that John may not be that much of a level-headed guy, that he may be more of a shoot first, ask questions later type of guy. Now this combined with a super soldier serum could definitely lead to trouble, and in this episode we kind of begin to see that, although it's not confirmed that he has any type of super soldier serum inside of him. So he goes through the Captain America praise, signs autographs, and he takes pictures, and there's already Captain America action figures of him that we see him signing. We get a great look at the new Captain America logo on the football field, which is sort of an A inside of a star. This is actually pretty similar to his logo in the comics. Notice a good majority of the fans in the stands are actually wearing shirts with the new Captain America logo on it, and it looks like this is very similar to the original Captain America being introduced. It was more of a PR stunt in the beginning to help people get excited and hopeful again, and this doesn't seem too different. As the Good Morning America interview starts, we find out that John Walker really is a stand-up guy and a hero. He was the first person in American history to receive 3 medals of honor. He ran RS-1 missions in counterterrorism and hostage rescue, and is apparently some sort of a super soldier without being a super soldier. At least that we know so far. He does state that he doesn't have super strength, but he does seem to have a handle on that shield as we see him practicing, throwing the shield in a very Captain America way. As we cut to Sam and Bucky, we see more propaganda posters for the new Captain America, just like the old Captain America had, a ton of propaganda posters. Now obviously Sam and Bucky are not happy about this. They're not happy about there being a new Captain America that isn't Sam, because the old Captain America, Steve Rogers, gave the shield to Sam. It was meant for him to be the new Captain America. And Bucky makes it known to Sam how upset he is, claiming that he had no right to give up that shield. However, Sam is on a mission. He thinks that the Flag Smashers could be super soldiers, stating that they're too strong, and he thinks they could be part of the big 3, androids, aliens, and wizards. But of course, deep down he knows that they are super soldiers. In fact, in the last scene in the first episode, Torres asks him, "You don't think they could be?" And then he gets cut off, but he was talking about super soldiers. He even tells Bucky, "They use brute force just like you." And of course, we soon find out that they indeed are super soldiers, and from here on out, Bucky and Sam become a dysfunctional team, and Bucky joins Sam on his mission. Sam and Bucky fly into Munich, and we get a feel for how their relationship is going to be. Bucky is used to Captain America, who usually had a plan, and Sam is definitely not like that. He does not have a plan, which is why Bucky says that Sam can't call him Bucky, because that's what Steve called him, and Steve had a plan. Now Falcon jumps out of the plane, and if you notice when he jumps out, you can hear a repulsor blast, or at least a sound that sounds just like Iron Man's repulsor blast. And as they mentioned in the first episode, Falcon's gear, his suit, is Stark level technology, and I do believe that his suit is Stark technology after hearing this noise. Now Bucky's not letting Sam go by himself, and he asks for a chute, but since they're too low, he can't parachute out. But him being a super soldier, he doesn't need a parachute. And right before diving out of the plane to a 200-foot drop, he rips off his sleeve and reveals his new arm. Now not much is really known about it at this point in time, but we can probably assume that it's made out of vibranium, since he was very close with T'Challa and the people of Wakanda. And since this takes place 6 months after the events of Avengers Endgame, he's had plenty of time at this point to revisit Wakanda. And Sam actually goes on to mention that he's been in Wakanda. Now it's unclear if he was talking about the time he spent in Wakanda before Avengers Infinity War, but he does say, "Look at you, you spend a little time in Wakanda and you come out the White Panther," which is a funny play on Black Panther, but of course his character was the White Wolf. And this is a callback to the Black Panther post-credit scene, where the children in Wakanda wake Bucky up and they call him the White Wolf. Then again in Avengers Infinity War, T'Challa would himself call Bucky the White Wolf. So he falls to the ground after hitting a bunch of trees, and Sam's drone, Red Wing, who Bucky hates, got it all on video. They eventually find the Flag Smashers and realize that they are insanely strong, watching only a couple of people lift insanely heavy objects. But Bucky has a vibranium arm and is a super soldier, and Sam can fly and seemingly has some Stark tech. And they think that the Flag Smashers may have a hostage, so the two of them take off, and Bucky runs insanely fast due to the fact that he is a super soldier. Now Bucky breaks into one of the convoys and realizes that they are transferring medicine and vaccines. We don't know what they are, but on them is the label for a company company that says GRC. Now, GRC was a logo that was shown in the ending credits of the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so it clearly means something. And more on that in just a bit. We then find out, of course, that the hostage is not a hostage, but a member of the Flag Smashers, and this whole thing turned out to be a trap because they knew that Sam and Bucky were following them. Then commences a pretty epic fight, and Sam and Bucky aren't exactly handling themselves very well. But luckily, the new Captain America John Walker and the new Bucky, or Lamar Hoskins aka Battlestar, show up and help. And it becomes very clear that the Flag Smashers are indeed super soldiers, as Captain America is throwing the shield, hitting someone in the head, and they're walking it off like it wasn't really anything, and these blows to the head by that shield should definitely kill them. And Captain America, the new Cap, definitely looks like he knows how to handle that shield. It's very clear that he has been training, and a few times it actually looks like he's throwing the shield at Bucky. Bucky has to duck a few times to avoid the shield. In fact, at one point in time he throws it, it bounces off somebody, and Bucky catches it. John Walker immediately takes it back, and we can see how frustrated Bucky is with the fact that the new Captain America is helping him, because to him there's only one Captain America, and that is his best friend, Steve Rogers. Now, unfortunately, none of them, even all together, are quite enough to take on these Flag Smashers. And as Falcon rescues Bucky and they land in the field, they realize that yes, those were super soldiers. And they realize that this group is a lot bigger and more of a threat than they thought they were. Now, John Walker actually had some good moves as Captain America, including throwing his shield very quickly to save his buddy. But in this scene, it actually becomes pretty apparent that John Walker and Hoskins are not super soldiers, because despite John Walker throwing the shield, in hand-to-hand combat, they were nothing compared to the Flag Smashers. Sam and Bucky make it their mission to find out where the new super soldier serum is coming from, and Sam wants to know that after 80 years, how are there still super soldiers running around? However, he's assuming that these are super soldiers from 80 years ago and not new super soldiers, which of course I believe we are going to find out they are new. John Walker and Lamar Hoskins show up and offer to give Bucky and Sam a ride. However, they don't want it at first. And you can really see the hatred of this new Captain America from Bucky. He even says, just because you have the shield doesn't mean you're Captain America. But John Walker says that he's put in the work. He's even jumped on 4 grenades. They eventually go into the Jeep, and we find out who the GRC is. We find out that GRC stands for the Global Repatriation Council. After the blip, when people started appearing again after being missing for 5 years, this organization helped people with reactivating citizenships, social security, healthcare, basically offering a lot of resources to help the world after the blip. And the new Captain America and Battlestar, as he says his name is, state that they are responsible for keeping things stable, like handling violent revolutionaries, people that may go against GRC like the Flag Smashers. Now, Bucky's just not having it, so he decides to get out, and John Walker states that he wants to be the best Captain America he can be. He's not trying to replace Steve, just be a good Cap. And he wants Captain America's wingmen, Sam and Bucky, by his side. But that doesn't sit well with Sam, so he gets out as well. We then go back to the Flag Smashers, who have found somewhat of a safe house. Now, this isn't exactly one of their own, however, it is held by somebody who supports their cause. As revealed on some of the flyers on some of the doors, we find out that this is an auto shop. Some read Wir kaufen alte Autos, which is we buy old cars. So these are normal people who support the cause of the Flag Smashers. They even call them freedom fighters. And the person even says that some people are calling them Robin Hood. And remember, the Flag Smashers' goal is to get things to how they were during the blip. They want to get rid of all of the flags, all of the identities. They want everybody to be one. And you can see how this can be appealing to some people and how they can kind of get a cult following, which they are getting. Now, here we find out that this mysterious character that Aaron Kellyman has been playing is Carly Morgenthau. And this is actually a very cool Easter egg because it's kind of a character switch. Because in the comics, the Flag Smasher was not a group, it was an actual person. And the first Flag Smasher was Carl Morgenthau. So they just call this one Carly because she's a woman, obviously. Now, in the MCU, in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I don't think Carly Morgenthau is the Flag Smasher. I don't think there is a one singular Flag Smasher. I think that's just the name of the group and that this is a cool Easter egg. Or maybe she is the leader of all of this, which could be a surprise seeing as how Sam thinks that the leader of this is the man with the long hair. And Carly very well could be the leader because she is the one who gets the text. And the text is from an unknown private number and it says, "You took what was mine, I'm going to find you and kill you." Now this is most likely from who is in charge of the GRC, seeing as how the Flag Smashers stole some vaccines from the GRC. They later go on to refer to this person as the Power Broker. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I think this could be Thunderbolt Ross. Now, we don't know if he was dusted or not, but she does go on to say that the GRC put the same people in charge now who were in charge before the blip. Thunderbolt Ross was definitely in a position of very high power within the government. So again, I do think that it could be him. Now, as we go on, it does seem like Carly is in charge because she says that she needs everybody to commit to them right then and there because tomorrow stuff is going down. But unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have to wait until the next episode or maybe even a couple of episodes to find out what that is. The next scene is with Sam and Bucky in a plane, and we actually get the name drop of Sharon Carter. Now, we can see just how upset Bucky is. He's pissed. We can see him in super deep thought when Sam asks, "You alright?" and he says, "Let's take the shield, Sam," wanting to take back what was rightfully his best friend's and then Sam's. But Sam explains that it's not exactly so easy. The shield is now government property and property of John Walker. And he explains what happened the last time that him and some other Avengers went against the government. Now, Sam went to Wakanda after the events of Civil War. He didn't really have to deal with the aftermath of the Sokovia Accords, but Sam did, along with Captain America and, as he says, Sharon Carter. He says, "Sharon was branded enemy of the state, and Steve and I were on the run for 2 years." And what's really interesting about this is he doesn't actually say Natasha. This is because she was actually only with them part of the time. This is because the Black Widow movie takes place after the events of Captain America Civil War, but before the events of Avengers Infinity War. So yes, Natasha was kind of on the run with them. She was deemed an enemy as well, but she left Sam and Steve Rogers to go handle the events which we'll see in Black Widow. Now, on the plane, Bucky says that there is somebody that Sam needs to meet, and they head to Baltimore, Maryland. And here we get an extremely important scene. They go up to a door and a young man answers, and we're going to talk about him in just a little bit, but Bucky says they're there to see Isaiah, in which he says there's nobody there by that name, and you're not getting through the door. But then Bucky says, tell him the guy from the bar in Goyang is here, and that he'll know what it means. Goyang is a city in South Korea, in the northern part of South Korea. And we go in and find out who Isaiah is and how he knows Bucky. We go in and we meet Isaiah Bradley. Now, in Marvel Comics, Isaiah Bradley is known as the Black Captain America, and he has a very intense story. Isaiah was around when Captain America, Steve Rogers, was in the ice. After losing the super soldier serum, the United States Army wanted to produce more super soldiers. So they attempted to reproduce the super soldier serum, and they forcibly recruited Isaiah and 300 other African American soldiers to serve as test subjects. After all the tests were done, only a handful of men survived, Isaiah being one of those. So Isaiah became a super soldier. Isaiah's last assignment was actually a suicide mission, but before leaving on the mission, he took a Captain America costume and a shield with him. He would actually survive his mission thanks to the help of a German freedom fighter group, and eventually he returned home. But when he got home, he was court-martialed and given life in prison for stealing the Captain America costume and shield. However, while he was in jail, his wife, Faith, wrote the president a letter every month for 3 years. And after 17 years in jail, the president ended up pardoning him. Isaiah ended up becoming a legend and a hero in the black community, and that's kind of what we see here in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. His story is a tiny bit different in the MCU, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more about it, but we find out that he was actually sent by the US government to kill Bucky. And this sounds like it was sort of a suicide mission as well. He states that they figured out which peninsula Bucky was on, and they kept sending people after him, and Bucky kept killing them. So they sent Isaiah, and Bucky actually says that Isaiah was a hero and one that Hydra feared the most, along with Steve Rogers. We find out that Isaiah actually kind of defeated Bucky, and he ripped off half of his metal arm. He obviously did not kill him, but he defeated him in battle. Bucky says that there are more of you and me out there, referring to super soldiers. However, Isaiah does not want to talk about it, and he actually starts to show some of his strength, throwing a tin container through the wall. We then find out why he is so upset. Just like in the comics, they put him in jail, but in the MCU, they put him in jail for 30 years. And while he was in jail, they did experiments on him. And he says that even your people, talking to Bucky, weren't done with him, and he was referring to Hydra, as Bucky later on explains. So not only did the US government do experiments on him, but it looks like Hydra did as well, which makes sense because Hydra was secretly infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D. and the US government. Now, at this point, Isaiah is extremely upset, and he tells the two of them to leave, in which case the young man tells them to get out. Now in the comics, Isaiah had a grandson, Eli. Eli would go on to become a founding member of the Young Avengers and would become the hero Patriot. Now he originally lied to the Young Avengers, telling them that he got some of his grandfather's DNA and super soldier serum in him, but he didn't. So what he started doing was injecting himself with mutant growth hormone to give himself super soldier powers. However, eventually down the line, during a battle between the Kree, the Skrulls, and the Young Avengers and New Avengers, Eli would get injured trying to save Captain America. His grandfather Isaiah would then give him some of his blood. And it worked. It saved his life, and after, Eli gained the physical attributes and powers of a real super soldier. And I believe that this young man in his house is most likely his son, Eli, aka Patriot. And we know that the Young Avengers are indeed going to be coming to the MCU, and it looks like we just met one of its founding members. As they leave, Sam is super upset that there was a black super soldier around that nobody told him or the world about, and that he's been around for decades. Bucky says that nobody knew and he didn't even tell Steve. And if this already wasn't deep enough talking about race, we dive even deeper when the cops show up. The cops get there and immediately start questioning Sam. They leave Bucky alone. In fact, they ask Bucky if Sam is bothering him. They only ask to see Sam's ID and they only tell Sam to calm down. Eventually, Bucky says, "Do you know who this is?" And the other cop says, "These are the Avengers." Now, the cop is pretty embarrassed and doesn't know what to do, but he comes back and it turns out that Bucky is actually the one in trouble. As it turns out, Bucky missed a therapy session, which was part of his pardon. He had to go to therapy. And since he missed it, he was put under arrest and he's taken to jail. Now, once he's at the jail, some very interesting things start happening. Sam meets Bucky's therapist, Dr. Rayner, and he thinks that it's her that got him out. However, we find out that it is the new Captain America, John Walker, that got him out. As it turns out, Dr. Raynor and John Walker used to do some field ops together. And John says that Bucky is now going to be done with therapy. And when Dr. Raynor asked who authorized this, he said himself. So he has some type of weird power here. He clearly has a lot of authority. This is something that the original Captain America, Steve Rogers, did not really have. He didn't have a ton of authority, he was a soldier. So that begs the question, a really important question, that is, why does John Walker have this power? Why does he have this authority? And the even bigger question, who gave it to him? I also think that this could be Thunderbolt Ross. I think he definitely has his own plans, and I think that he wants to give the super soldier serum to John Walker. And I think this is all going to come to light very, very soon. Now, in order for Bucky to get released, he has to do a therapy session, and she makes Sam join. And despite a lot of ridiculousness, we actually find out a lot here. We find out the real reason that Bucky is so upset over Sam giving up the shield. He said it represented everything that Steve represented. He says that Steve trusted Sam, but maybe he was wrong about him, and if he was wrong about Sam, then maybe Steve was wrong about Bucky. And what he's referring to here is Bucky being a good person. As we know, a big part of Bucky's life right now is trying to right his old wrongs that he did as the Winter Soldier. He killed a lot of people, and a lot of innocent people, including Yori's son, and he's now questioning who he is and if he's good, and Steve was the person that was there to tell him that he was good. But Steve's not there anymore, and he's doubting himself, and he's now thinking that if Steve was wrong about Sam, choosing him to be the next Captain America after him, maybe he was wrong about Bucky as well, and that Bucky isn't actually good and there's no hope for him. Now, of course there is, but Bucky is in a really hard place. Now, Sam then says that giving up the shield was something that him or Steve could never understand, which leads me to believe that it has to do with race. In the comics, when Nick Fury recommended Sam Wilson be the next Captain America after Steve Rogers, they denied him, stating that the world might not be ready for a black Captain America. The director and the writer of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier stated many different times that this show is going to explore race, and if the world is ready for a black Captain America. So this leads me to believe that something involving racism happened before Sam chose to give up the shield, something that I'm sure we'll find out relatively soon. Sam then proposes that they finish this mission and then never speak to each other again, in which Bucky agrees, but we all know that that's not going to be the case by the end of the series. They leave and they're greeted by the new Captain America, John Walker, who they absolutely love, and his partner, Battlestar. John Walker suggests that they work together. They need to track down the Flag Smashers, and during this conversation you can see John Walker getting more and more agitated. Sam explains that since John Walker and Battlestar work for the government, they have rules and regulations and authorizations that they need to get before they can actually do a mission and engage. Sam and Bucky, however, are free agents, and they can kind of do whatever they want, so it doesn't make sense to work together. Essentially, he was saying that Sam and Bucky are better off without John Walker and Hoskins, and this really pisses off John Walker in a a bunch of different levels. It makes him mad that he has to go through all this authorization that he talked about, and it also makes him mad that he was rejected, so he says, "Stay the hell out of my way." And we start to see the darker side of this new Captain America, which I think is going to come out a lot more in the following episodes. And I think that John Walker might have a pretty tragic story in this series. Now, going back to the Flag Smashers, we find out about the Power Broker. The Power Broker's men have found the Flag Smashers, and as I mentioned, I believe that the Power Broker is in charge of the GRC. Now, the Power Broker in the comics is kind of an actual person. The Power Broker Corporation was founded by Curtis Jackson, and basically what he did was turn people into super soldiers for the right price. Essentially, people could pay him to have a super soldier serum injected into them, but it was very, very risky, and a lot of people died during the process. Now, in the comics, the Power Broker Corporation was founded by Curtis Jackson. However, in the MCU, I believe it could be founded by Thunderbolt Ross. We know he's been working on the super soldier serum and Weapons Plus program ever since the Incredible Hulk. I believe he is behind the GRC, and he's behind the Power Broker Corporation, or calling himself the Power Broker, attempting to create a perfect super soldier serum. But until we find out, we will simply refer to this person as the Power Broker. Now, the Power Broker's men eventually find the Flag Smashers, but one of the Flag Smashers sacrifices himself for the greater good, and the rest of them manage to get away. Then we have the final scene that sets up a lot which is to come. Bucky explains that when Isaiah was talking about his people, he was talking about Hydra. They experimented with super soldiers, and now Bucky thinks that they could be behind these super soldiers as well. And there's one person that knows a ton about Hydra, and that is Zemo, the person responsible for framing Bucky and also controlling him via the Hydra brainwashing, and also the person responsible for essentially destroying the Avengers, as we saw him do very well in Captain America Civil War. Bucky explains that he knows all of Hydra's secrets, and that's who they need to go see. He is currently in jail after the events of Civil War, and we see him in his cell in the very last shot. So in the next episode, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 2, we are getting Baron Zemo and hopefully Sharon Carter. That's it for this breakdown. Be sure to subscribe for future Falcon and the Winter Soldier breakdowns, as well as other Marvel Disney Plus shows coming. Let me know what you rate this episode in the comments down below. Don't forget to give the video a like, and for live updates you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.